Indian Pharma has made a name for itself in the generic space. In fact, we are one of the biggest producers of generic drug. But it's the turnkey project. It's the turnkey and marquee drugs that command a premium, and that's what Indian drug makers are vying for. Success has been limited so far, with bigger players not really managing to find a foothold just yet. Meanwhile, a select few have stuck to research and development, and that's slowly starting to yield results. So how does one look upon the Indian pharma industry right now, and what are the challenges in the sector going ahead? Joining us in the studio is Deepak Malik, Senior Research Analyst at Edelweiss Securities, who's just come out with a detailed report on the Indian pharma industry, and Amit Rajan, MD of Prosfora Technologies, a firm that works on good manufacturing practices for drug makers. Good morning, Amit. Good morning, Deepak. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio. Deepak, a pretty comprehensive note that you've come out on the pharma space. I was reading, rather interesting, where you point out that generics is not the only game now. You have to get into specialization in order to get the numbers ahead. Tell us a little briefly what's the key highlight of this report that you've come out with.
So in this report, what we have done is we have analyzed the opportunity space for the Indian pharma market for the next 5 years in the US market. So what we have seen is that there are total $100 billion worth of patents which are going to expire against $70 billion of patents in the last 5 years. The interesting thing is that in that 2/3 will be in the complex space.
Okay.
Unlike in the past where only 1/3 was in the complex space. So the challenges are going to change. Till now, the companies were facing the pricing issues in the US market because of the increase in the number of approvals by the US FDA, increase in the competition, and as a result, prices were coming down. But going forward, the key challenge will be to adapt the business model as per the changing opportunity mix. Invest more into these complex technologies, and getting approval for these complex molecules will be a tough challenge for these Indian companies.
So will 2019 be slightly tougher for Indian farmers? Because you pointed out that recovery will be gradual. We've seen that over the past at least 7 to 8 quarters, the numbers have not been adding up for the Indian pharma companies. So how many years before of more pain do you see in the pharma side?
So if you see from 2011 to 2016, there was a 20% CAGR growth in the US generic market for Indian companies. For the last 2 years, there was almost 10% decline for the Indian companies. In the last 2 quarters, we have seen that decline has been arrested, and now the revenue is almost stable, constant, not declining. Even in the terms of price erosion, what we have seen is that double-digit price erosion, which was happening over the past 2 years, has now come down to high single-digit. Because concentration of revenue in few products which was there for the Indian companies has now almost reached to the bottom. So from here onwards, I think they will come back to the growth path again. There will be 3 to 5% growth in the US revenue for the generic industry. Few companies will do very well, few companies may not do very well.
Okay, we'll discuss about the company, but Amit, you work in this industry. Is that something that you agree to, that generics is now getting obsolete, and you need to find more spaces for the pharma companies to invest? Because the numbers, frankly, if you see the numbers and the commentary from most of the pharma companies, they say that over the next 1-2 years, don't expect any kind of growth that will come in.
Yeah, I entirely agree with Deepak actually. See, generic is getting slowed, and he has quoted the number of 100 billion molecules getting off patent. In fact, in generic vanilla drugs, which we call it normal drugs, there is no pipeline coming after 2023. Big Pharma has stopped working on that. They have moved on to biomolecules and biosimilars. Now, taking away from what Deepak has given the value, please understand, this 100 billion comes with a different therapeutic categories. Now, pharma has a very high gestation period in terms of setting up its own infrastructure. Typically, from a GMP aspect, I tell you that if you are not making you want to get into an anti-cancer product, so you can't produce an anti-cancer product in a normal facility that you have.
Okay.
That's where the pharma comes into a huge regulations. If you're like 25% or 30% of these molecules we are getting off patent are basically hormonal and steroids. Now for that you need a dedicated site. You can't mix up steroids with hormones, hormones with steroids, hormones with oncology, and oncology with other general products. So that requires a good company to have all sorts of infrastructure in place. That's currently not in place with Indian companies. So they partly outsource some of the business in terms of contract manufacturing. But yes, people who are pure generics will definitely see the numbers going down.
Okay. The other thing that I want to discuss, and it's been spoken about a lot, is this API issue in China. What do you make into it, that Amit? What's the scenario currently?
See, you cover Sun. I mean, your Sun has been always been in the news. Not many people know that Sun Pharma has close to 300 filings of API in US. See, if the APIs are of two different categories, one is fermentation based, where you use a fermenter to produce, and non-chemical based. If API is not a fermentation based API, India can still produce it cheaper than the general public perception that China can produce cheaper than that. Only the government has to little bit work on the relaxing the pollution controls. Otherwise, every API that India needs till 2026 for the patent value that you are saying, India can produce of its own, and Big Pharma is doing that. Only thing is we get little bit of cost issue in terms of fermentation based API because power is little costlier in India, and China they have a scale to do that. Otherwise, I still don't feel that China is ahead of India in API because non-fermentation based technology, you don't even find some of the molecules being developed in China.
Okay, you said that TVS Lab is something that you like in your report because of the China disruption and outsourcing. What's your view on TVS? How big of an opportunity is this for them?
So Deepak, if you see, is a contract manufacturing or a CRAMS company, and the issue which has happened in China, so a lot of demand is coming for these kind of companies, and now two things have happened. One, there's a disruption in few molecules, and for that they are looking for a new supplier where Deepak like player can play a role. And second thing, even where the disruption has not happened, the supplier is looking for alternate customer, or the customer is looking for alternate supplier because they can't rely on the Chinese supplier. So they have realized this fact in the last 2 years. So their Indian companies have a role to play, and Deepak being only in CRAMS and has proved this credentials over the last 20 years is in a very good state. And plus Deepak has announced 1200 crores of capex over the last 2 months. So that also shows that they also have a good visibility in terms of this opportunity, and I think they will benefit immensely from the Chinese disruption.
Okay, Amit, were you surprised? And I know this is a little dated issue, but were you surprised at the way Deepak was able to transform itself, from being a leader and then getting an import alert, and then again coming back to that position, the transition? How is Deepak able to do this?
See, I think we discussed it earlier also. See, Deepak is typically an API company, and that to a CRO, it's a contract manufacturing organization. So if you compare with Deepak, which is typically API plant and contract manufacturer, with a normal pharma plant like Sun Pharma and Lupin, the turnaround time to address a warning letter is little faster because, see, these big pharma, these big customers who are working with Deepak, they've also helped them to upgrade their quality management system. Because see, here, the big pharma needed the API. Look at naproxen as of now. There's not a single supplier of naproxen other than Deepak in the world, quality supplier. So people who needed naproxen in US as a formulation, their team came to Deepak. They helped them to upgrade their QMS. So they could beat the timelines earlier than the normal pharma companies who uses consultants to get out of warning letters.
Okay, that was it. The other stock, Deepak, that you talk about as the best complex players on the complex opportunity is Dr. Reddys. What are you sensing in Dr. Reddys? Because right now Suboxone is not happening. What other opportunities are you referring to here that could be of growth value for Dr. Reddys?
So Dr. Reddy, I think, has the best pipeline in the complex space. Okay. In that, if you see, it's not just the Suboxone part of it. There's a Neuvering, there's a Copaxone. Then they have a DFN02, which is a sumatriptan nasal spray they are coming up with. And for that, they are going to get the approval in the month of January. It will be a specialty product, and the peak revenue can be around $100 million. Okay. Then they also have a paraforin Revlimid, where they are fighting with Celgene. So I think their pipeline is quite rich, and if I compare with any other Indian company, I think they have the best pipeline. So if the complex space will fire, then I think Dr. Reddy will be the first one to benefit out of it.
Okay, Amit, Dr. Reddy's, I think they've done everything right except for getting issues with some of their plants. Some of their plants have gotten cleared, but there are still some lingering issues. You think when you speak to people in the industry that Reddy will be able to come out of this?
It has been 3 inspections. They have not come out of it, and the reason being, which I have been telling the industry, that we have to be little careful in aseptic manufacturing practices. India needs to gear up for sterile manufacturing. Dr. Reddy's had taken a challenge of getting sterile manufacturing site, which is unlike a mixed plant of oral and sterile, is completely injectable plant. And I hope with support from good people from the industry and consultants, they will come out this time actually.
Okay. The other important theme that everyone wants to talk about is biology, because that's also, you say, one of the area. Sun has gone into specialty. Biocon is doing really, really well in biology. Is one of the best performers as of now. Deepak, you think that there is enough? Biocon is striking the right chord in the biology space, or will global competition something, or are they too nascent in the global competition era?
So, first thing which I want to establish here is that biosimilar is a very different game from its chemical-based drugs.
Sure.
Okay. In biosimilar, you see the competition is against the players like Pfizer, Amgen, Lilly, Samsung. So these are the players whom against you are competing with. Second thing, there is still not interchangeable in the US like the way chemical-based drugs are. For that, you need to do the separate clinical trials. So for that, you need to have a front end in the US market, because otherwise you will not be able to get the prescriptions, you will not be able to get the market share. So these are the challenges. So I believe that Indian companies are at little disadvantage in the start against biosimilars in the US market. But over the period of time, as the acceptability will improve in the US market, so you will see that Indian companies will start investing significantly in this biosimilar game. Yes, Biocon is at the front, because they are the only company who has invested significantly in the biosimilar, and they have a partner in terms of Mylan. So yes, I think next few years will be very good for the Biocon in terms of the revenue from the biosimilar.
But you have a sell only on the rate, on basis of valuation. You think it's expensive, that's why you have a sell, or do you believe that there is some issue as far as their future pipeline is concerned?
No, I think they have a very solid pipeline for the short term, medium term and long term. I think they are investing significantly, and plus they have a partner in Mylan, and then for few products they also have a Sandoz as a partner. So I think they are doing all right things in terms of getting into this game. But my take is more onto the valuation part, because market is getting very excited on this, and they are giving almost $4 billion value to their pipeline, where they have invested only $500 million. So almost like 8x valuation is coming to giving to the biosimilar value, which I believe is too high, because the pricing erosion here also will be high going forward, because there are at least 5 to 6 players in each of the products, and whoever is the first one will make money, but the third, fourth and fifth will not make as much money. And second issue which I have in the biosimilar is that the capital employed is very high in this business.
Okay.
So ROCs will be challenged, and in case of Biocon, they are investing 75% of whatever investment they have done is into the insulin business. And in insulin business, there are 3 players world over who has dominated the market: Novo, Sandoz and Sanofi. So they are holding almost 90% of the market share in all the markets. Even if you see in India, Sanofi has, or these 3 players have almost 90% market share, and Biocon has only 6% market share. So in this insulin market, where they have invested 75% of their investment, so their getting market share will be challenged, and plus making an ROC also will be a challenge there. So I think valuation is way ahead than the fundamentals.
Okay. The other one, you have a buy recommendation on Cadila. Somehow it's been an underperformer. I'm talking about the stock price. Why is it that? Why is Cadila not been able to give shareholder returns of late?
So Cadila has a amazing track record in terms of regulatory. So they have done 7-8 regular US FDA visits very successfully. So that is one very good thing about the Cadila. Second, they are able to launch mesalamines, Lialda, Asacol HD on time. So they are getting into that complex part also. So they are investing significantly in vaccines, in biosimilars. So they have 12 biosimilars in their pipeline. They have almost 20 vaccines in their pipeline. So they are doing all those right investment into the right areas. I think the reason for stock not doing well is one, the acquisition of the recent wellness acquisition which they have done in Complan. That I think market has not taken favorably, because there is a huge commitment in terms of 4,600 crores commitment they are doing it there, and in that 1,500 crores or approx will be coming in from Cadila. So that is one one challenge, because against them is the GSK and HUL combined, which is coming in Horlicks, because Horlicks HUL has acquired that from the GSK. So the category itself is growing at 3%, whereas now you have a very formidable challenger in terms of HUL and GSK. So for them to compete against them and make this investment work will be a tall task. So we'll wait and watch how this thing will pan out, because category is not growing. And if you have a competitor like HUL who will be investing so much in the advertisement and the marketing front, then for the second player to grow will be a little challenging. So I think that is one thing which is putting a toll on the stock performance.
Okay, Amit, you have your ears in the industry. You're seeing what exactly companies are doing. Which are the upcoming companies in India which are really doing well currently at this point of time?
Before I answer this question, let it take from Deepak on insulin at least. See, you are looking only from at a listed company's perspective. From a non-listed company's perspective, there are huge work going on in biotech space. To give an example, mankind is going to jump the queue on insulin by buying out a biotech advanced molecule of a US company. So there are a lot of companies in Europe, small companies, which have already gone much ahead in insulin and other biologics. Coming to the new upcoming companies, I see Torrent has a great prospect with their European acquisition of number of good product dossiers that they've acquired. They have a capacity to assimilate it, unlike Aurobindo, who did it when they did not have the capacity. Now Aurobindo has the capacity. So Torrent is a good upcoming company, and Jubilant always remains my favorite company with respect to at least the API capabilities.
Okay, let's talk about the leader Sun Pharma. Amit, you think it will be able to get over all the issues that are there, again reach the prime that it had?
See, the India story is Sun Pharma story. Sun Pharma has to come to the level where it was, because Sun has, again, like, and he rightly said that Dr. Reddys has a very fascinating pipeline. Sun also has a very good pipeline, and Sun also is sitting with a good front end with Taro and all that in US, which are now started doing good. So I have very high hopes of Sun Pharma coming back.
Okay, what's your view on Sun Pharma? Do you think that somehow nothing is working for Sun Pharma? It will take at least a few years. Will they be able to go and get the specialty pipeline in place to come back to where it was?
I think Sun Pharma is always ahead of the game. So we have seen in the past the way they invested in Taro, and at that point of time they got into the dermatology space. So nobody was thinking about that. So they got into that complex space. So now ahead of the market, they also have moved from generics to the specialty. And they've invested almost $1.5 billion in the specialty game, and in that major investment has gone into the MK3222, which is basically Ilumya for a psoriasis drug. So, but the challenge in this game is that the learning curve is very steep in the specialty. It's not that easy, because till now these companies were selling the generic drugs which is being sold at pharmacist level. But now they want to sell the branded drugs in the US market, where they have to promote to the doctor, where they have to create those relationships with the doctor, and not only with the doctor but also with the formularies who will pay for that. So this takes some time, and I think Sun is going through that. So it'll take, I think, another 2-3 years to learn this, and then I think this model will become more mature, and then they'll be start giving the return on this specialty investment. So I think next 2-3 years will be little challenging. One, because this investment will take some time, and second, also Absorica will go off patent in the month of November 2020, and this is a big drug for Sun Pharma. I think is the largest revenue drug in the US market for the Sun Pharma, and if that will go off patent, so then there will be an impact on the earnings for Sun Pharma. So I think for the next 2-3 years I see some challenges for the specialty pipeline.
Okay, we need to wrap up, but few follow-up questions to both of you. What's your view on Lupin? Do you think they will be able to get out of the FDA issues?
So Lupin, I think the worst is over for the Lupin, because their metformin franchise, we have seen enough competition coming into it. So profitability has gone down to the basic level, and their new products, Solosex, which they have launched, that also have seen some traction, but not as per the expectation. But the traction has started coming in that product, and going forward, there are few good product lineup are there. So I think things will start improving. And second, in terms of the US FDA issues, also they have covered whatever, or they have done whatever was supposed to be done, and I think they are in the process of inviting US FDA again for the inspection. And let's hope for the best. I think they should be able to resolve by the next year.
Okay, Amit, what's your view on Wockhardt? Will they be able to finally come out of this? Are they doing stuff? You must be knowing what's happening in the industry.
Yes.
Are they doing enough that their plans could get cleared?
There's a new Dr. Reddy's team. They have completely changed the leadership team, not with respect to business, but with respect to manufacturing and quality. So looks like that team is doing good. They had a huge experience. But again, in terms of Wockhardt, as I have been telling that there's a huge trust gap between FDA and Wockhardt now, with almost all, including the US facility, serving the warning letter. So it will be a Herculean task for Wockhardt to get back.
But do you expect that 2019 again will be a tough year for Indian pharma, given how in terms of FDA inspection, will it get tougher, or are our standards improving now so that the FDA probably passes off more of the companies?
Yeah, good question. See, I tell you, in terms of big pharma, you will not find any surprises. Big pharma, the routine inspections will always have some queries. That's not okay. People work, people make mistake. But they have to avoid what Sun Pharma did, taking back Lupin. Lupin's worst is over. But sometimes the management seems to be lazy at places where the business aspect is not there. Like, give you example, I mean, cephalosporin probably is not much of Lupin's concern in US in terms of numbers. And Mandidip facility was cephalosporin facility. And it got 13 observations, and some of them are very major observations. So, no, that brings again a doubt in us as a consultant as to what is happening with the company at the top level. Because see, if you are working in US for any molecules, whether it's giving you a 0.1% revenue or a 90% revenue, it should be same as the quality is not great, it's either black or white. So Mandidip was a surprise to me when we thought that Lupin probably is on the course of becoming one of the good GMP companies. But yes, in terms of US FDA giving more warning letters and all that, I don't think so big pharma will serve a warning letter now.
Okay. So that's the time that we have for this discussion. It was a very interesting discussion. Thank you, Deepak, so much for sharing your perspective. Thank you, Amit, so much for speaking to us. But with that, it's a wrap on this edition of the Indian Open.